Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the VMblog Expert Interview Series. And today we're happy to have a returning guest, Puneet Gupta, the CEO and founder of Amberflo. Welcome back to the show.
David, great to be back with you. So excited to be back. Awesome.
Always enjoy our conversations.
Likewise. Yeah.
So we've been fortunate to feature Amberflo on here before, and it's been about, I think, 6 months since you and I last spoke. I know Amberflo believes more modern businesses need to shift away from subscription pricing and embrace usage-based pricing. But as a reminder to our audience, can you maybe explain a bit more about why you believe this, what that means, and how Amberflo can help?
So let's talk about sort of this shift to usage-based pricing, and then we'll also call out how we help customers enable that and be successful with that. If anything, and as you mentioned, I think last time we spoke, maybe about 6 months back, at that point, I think the data is starting to kind of come in. Things were going in this direction, but I can already tell you, if anything, it's further accelerated, the shift to usage-based pricing. Okay, so why that's happening, why we saw it coming several years ago. I think we also talked about that, a little bit of our background from AWS. Had a chance to build a couple of tier one AWS services, so saw early days of usage-based pricing and billing, metering, usage tracking. In many ways, they were kind of the pioneers and bringing this model to the world. But the underlying thesis of why this is inevitable always has been actually since the dawn of cloud computing. And this reason is actually less talked about because now, the focus is, as more and more companies have done it, fortunately, there's good case studies out there. People are seeing that it drives greater net retention rate. You can organically drive adoption and usage of your products on the backs of usage-based pricing. There's ample evidence of that. One of the litmus tests of that is, any company you look at that got towards doing usage-based pricing, maybe even just by sheer experiment, they themselves were not sure, or even in the cases where they were sure, you will look back and see, they've never had to look back. And these companies, the early companies are, and I'm not even talking about AWS, let's talk about the next batch of companies like Databricks, Snowflake, Twilio, right? The next generation of PaaS companies that came about, everybody leaned on this usage-based pricing and billing model, and nobody's dialed it back, nobody's turned it back. So it's one of those things, it's a gift that keeps on giving. Once you develop the muscle, once you get into the framework, once you put in the right tooling, like I said, greater NRR starts to show up, your operational efficiency increases, you drive organic product adoption, you start to increase your revenue on the backs of greater NRR. So that's kind of the thing what I refer to, that's a gift that keeps on giving. But let's just come back to this point I made, why this was inevitable. And I think this, people tell me this thesis that I put out, which is not mine, it's actually factual, but oftentimes it's not that how people connect the dots. So, when AWS essentially pioneered this cloud computing world, EC2 storage by pay by the drink, pay as you go, and now no matter which cloud provider you're with, cloud by nature is elastic, right? So what that translates to is you have the flexibility to dial up and dial down on demand what you wish to consume out of your cloud provider. Okay, so that's the definition of elasticity. Elastic, resources on demand on an elastic basis. So simple fact is this: if that is the infrastructure, your underlying foundation, your backend data center, however you want to, that is the platform that you're building your products and services. And that infrastructure is charging you on a usage basis, on an elastic basis. How you then sell your products and services also must be elastic for you to arrive at the maximum operational efficiency between what I call sort of your front-end revenue intake to your back-end cost outtake. Okay. So that was sort of the initial genesis of usage-based pricing. People wanted to really align that, okay, for the storage that I'm using on back-end storage or compute, I must align that to the customer that's using more of my storage, right? Or giving you more to store. Because I can't just no longer have $99 per user per month and eat all you can, because the folks who are storing more obviously are costing me more because I have elastic cost basis on the back end. So that was sort of the genesis of usage-based pricing and billing. Okay. But in that process, of course, they discovered some of the, quite frankly, the nuances that we have been living with as an industry almost for the last 15, 20 years, if you think about it. And I'm talking about the subscription world, the hard set, fixed subscription model. When people started to see this usage-based pricing and billing, they realized on both sides, customers and vendors, customers in particular, that they were the ones basically left holding the bag in the subscription world. Arbitrarily, a number of seats were decided up front, contracts were signed up at the beginning of the term cycle, money was exchanged all up front mostly. And then, if usage dropped or there wasn't even any usage or whatever it was, the customer was basically on the hook. The money was already out the gate. So the usage-based pricing kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. It's more customer-centric. So customers leaned in. Yes, totally makes sense. If I use more, I'm happy to pay more. But if I'm not using as much, I should have the option to not be bounded to a contract. I should be able to dial it up or down. Okay. So that, I think, how the wind started to shift in this direction. And the companies who are customer-centric, I would say, who are more about, let's do right by the customer, were the first ones to kind of lean into this model. And now I said, as I say, the ship has sailed now. It's been many years, so I think now you got to just do it, otherwise you'd be outlier. And then lastly, why this is then inevitable. Now, I think maybe even when we spoke last, or certainly about a year ago, nobody could have really said a couple of years back that there's going to be another catalyst that's going to land on the scene, really just kind of, fall in our laps in the form of this LLM and generative AI, right? Now, of course, we can talk at length about that, but the whole world's already Google about it. It's basically being brought in and factored in by any product teams out there. And what is our roadmap with respect to generative AI? How do we bring that into our products and services to up-level our customer experience? And, without going too long into that, but, the short of it is the moment you're going to bring in any form of GenAI, LLM, or for that matter, I would say even any form of AI, ML, you're down the path of usage-based pricing and billing, because those are cloud-native artifacts, and they are going to be delivered to you on a usage basis. So no matter whose LLM you're using, whether your own on the infrastructure or third party, they're going to charge you based on input, output tokens, and you're going to have to meter that of how much of my customers is costing me on the LLM side, and you're going to then have to factor that into your customer-facing pricing plans. So that has further accelerated the shift towards usage-based pricing and billing. And then lastly, so what do? We are Amberflo.io. We provide essentially a soup to nuts, all the way from metering to usage tracking of your cloud resources, specifically LLM, AI, ML cloud resources, or for that matter, any part of your stack. Then we help you do cost analytics, usage, plus my cost footprint, and then revenue footprint with respect to usage-based pricing and billing. So we give you a full-featured metering, pricing, invoicing, and billing platform out of the gate to tackle these usage-based pricing and billing use cases.
Recently, Amberflo has positioned itself as really the only dedicated AI monetization platform on the market. What made your company shift focus over to AI? Obviously, you mentioned it's everywhere and everybody's looking at it, but and how does that relate to usage-based pricing trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, so I would say, this is almost an extension. We look at the world as, we are a horizontal platform technology provider. And what are those things for us? It's a horizontal layer of metering, which is essentially a euphemism for usage tracking. And you can really track anything, any cloud resource, anything, instance hours, storage, API calls, number of times the wheel rotates, how high the bird flies, how many times, anything that has a date and timestamp that you wish to track over a period of time, over time stream, do it right, do it accurately. Metering is the artifact for that. So we provide a metering service, and then we provide these series of applications on top of our metering platform. Pricing and billing is one, quoting is another one. And now taking this entire stack and further fine-tuning it for AI ML. And so let me give you an example. So not so much a shift, but essentially sort of a new product extension. And so let's unpack that and why we make this claim, the only vendor to give you out of the box usage tracking, cost analytics, cost tracking, and revenue tracking by giving you the ability to build customer-facing usage-based pricing plans for products and services built on top of LLMs or any form of AI. And one of the ways that we are differentiated and highly differentiated, so when you come into Amberflo, and let's say, as we were just talking about, I mean, who isn't? Everybody's looking at which LLM I'm going to leverage and how am I going to up-level my customer experience of my products and services. And then they're going to have to start, reconciling how much of LLM is being used by my user or by my customer, and that whole visibility from start to finish. With Amberflo, we are giving you pre-built usage tracking and cost tracking for LLMs. So we have predefined meters and pricing plans in Amberflo. You come in and you can simply drop down and say, I'm using OpenAI, or I'm using Anthropic, or I'm using Amazon Bedrock, I'm using Titan, any one of these LLM models. We already have the instrumentation data structure already defined. You simply have to just drop that in wherever you're making the call, and the system starts to come alive. And we also have the cost models predefined for these LLMs because they're public priced. So we can simply put in the price. You can track usage in one graph. You can track cost by user, by customer inside Amberflo. And then we also have some sample pricing plans pre-built. So let's say if you want to do a cost plus model, right? I'm using Anthropic LLM, and I'm just going to uplift and cost plus this because I'm essentially a reseller of sorts or whatever, right? So we have those pre-built pricing models, or for that matter, custom pricing plans. So let's say you're using an LLM, but we're doing essentially video transcription. Okay, I'm not going to charge for video transcription in terms of inputs, outputs, tokens, but I'm going to charge maybe by number of hours of video that I'm transcribing. So we have some sample pricing plans for you to build those kinds of customer-facing plans, generate on-demand metered invoicing and billing, soup to nuts. This is pre-built inside Amber.
Every business out there is racing to try to build Gen AI into their applications. Talk about that a little bit and really explain, if you could, how is Amberflo helping them understand how to actually profit from these AI initiatives?
Yeah, very cool. Because there is actually it is definitely a little bit of a new territory, and I'll specifically call that out. What aspect of it is sort of new? So, a couple of things. As folks start to experiment with LLM, and I think a lot of folks are sort of in that mode, or let's even say this way, I think by and large your audience will agree. Everybody knows that I'm going to be using LLM. I think we're at that, we've kind of crossed that threshold. Now the question is, how much, how aggressively, how does it shape my customer experience? But I don't think anybody's going to say, yeah, this LLM thing is not for me. People are just trying to figure out how much and where, and then what form, and how much should I then train my own model versus how much can I just use out of the box. I think that's where a lot of folks are and figuring that out. As is typical, with any new technology that comes in, we're going to kind of see a maturity curve, not just on the base technology, but also the use cases that evolve over time of how customers and prospects end up using it. So within that, we're going to see that because it is so new, so profound, everybody's doing it. We're going to go through this phase of experimentation. And like I said, experimentation is not a binary, should I do it, should I not do it? That's what I'm saying. I think we've already passed that gate, but it's in what form and how much and what is that ramp, right? And which features, is it a la carte, is it everywhere? I think that is sort of the experimentation where it will be a little bit of an iterative loop. I'll maybe launch a feature, then maybe I'll launch another feature. The next product I launch will be more LLM based and all those kinds of things. And one of the signals that you need through this experimentation cycle is what is the impact to my cost footprint for LLM, right? Because it's not one of those things, David, right? And where you just spin up, it's not a compute cluster instance where once I have it, I can just throw on the load and it's fixed cost. It's not that, right? So, if I have 1 hour of recording and I'm transcribing it and then I'm sending that transcription to Anthropic, and that is going to summarize it for me. How often am I going to do it? How many customers are actually sending full 1 hour worth of recording versus who are the ones who are sending 15 minutes of recording? What is the context? All that stuff. This is what I'm referring to experimentations. And while you'll be checking for the output, the value, one of the things you're going to have to closely keep track of is, how's the LLM cost behaving as I dial up, dial down? So ultimately, I can build a profitable business model, because at the end of the day, no matter what technology, what use case, if you don't solve within that a repeatable, scalable monetization model or strategy, it's not going to work, right? Despite the fact that you may have a killer product, we've seen this many times, unless it brings home the bacon, at the end of the day, you're going to have to come full circle on a monetization strategy. Okay. We already discussed, well, that has to be, at least it'll have to have some form of usage-based vector in it, right? It just can no longer be $99 per user per month. That is already a non-starter. Okay. So this is the part that I think folks perhaps might overlook in their rush to go to market with LLM. I call it sort of the last mile problem, right? And but you don't come full circle without solving the last mile, and sometimes last mile sort of has these all weird nuances, which turn out to be more problematic and kind of to come full circle. Now, the good news is there are companies like Amberflo. We're there. We can get you there. You can do this experimentation. You can keep track of how much LLM is being used. And then, further layers, like we're still in the early innings of LLMs, as much as, as good as they are or early as it seems. But, new LLMs are coming up on the scene. New versions are coming. Every LLM is different. Every version is priced different. Okay, every vendor prices, the price charges are different. There are different ways how you can use them. If you start to train them, then there's another cost profile. So it's the landscape is rapidly evolving. So you need a tool that gives you that flexibility. You're going to have to keep a handle on. I'll give you another example. Like I said, you may mix and match an LLM, right? You may find that Anthropic or ChatGPT, OpenAI gives you the best results for text, but maybe Adobe Fireflies gives you the best results for graphics, for images. There's nothing stopping you from mixing and matching. So this is where I find, when I say experimentation, people are going to have to figure out what is that right combination, sweet spot, that works for them. And guess what? It will never be constant. You may find that you found it, and then yet another, after 3 months, 6 months, something new comes on the horizon, or you may get more scale, and you're going to have to adjust that. So that's what I was referring to, where there's a new learning curve here. That wasn't the case with any traditional subscription pricing model ever. That scenario never existed. So that is just then, you need a new modern technology stack to kind of keep you ahead of that.
Now, all of this makes sense, but at the same time, it also seems pretty complicated. So not only do teams need to figure out how to use AI and keep up with the pace of change, but you're saying they also need to figure out usage-based metering and pricing if they want to actually make money. How do companies deal with this sort of complication and deal with it one at a time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'll share with you just sort of, what we hear, with our customers. And um, surprisingly, in a good way, we're finding just people kind of leaning in, that they're kind of jumping in with both feet. I think it helps a little bit the fact that the trend towards usage-based pricing fortunately started already a little while back, because if it had just come on the scene as a function of LLMs, I think then it would have been too much, as you said. But things were already kind of going in this direction. We've already been working with several customers before who had already, as we talked about, done usage-based pricing, came to the scene with usage-based pricing, were independent of LLM and AI, were leaning towards usage-based pricing and billing for all the reasons we talked about. So I think by and large, the awareness was there that there is a shift in the monetization model, like I said, independent despite LLM AI. So LLM AI, at least what we're seeing, is not has certainly accelerated that shift. Yes, has brought on more companies into the fold who perhaps said, okay, fine, maybe I'll look at usage-based pricing next year or later this year. It's a next year initiative for me. I think that certainly has been pulled in by virtue of GenAI LLM. But having said that, look, yeah, I'm not going to say it is a heavier lift, relatively a heavier lift compared to the old pricing model. But it is not, it is not as challenging as it seems because guess what? Till about 4 or 5 years, prior to Amberflow, yes, it would have been complicated because the only choice would have been to build. And many of the companies that I shared with you earlier were the first set of companies. They had no choice but to build. Like if you look at some of these larger ones, like Twilio, we know as a matter of fact, had no choice but to dedicate entire teams to building in-house metering, usage-based pricing, and billing infrastructure because nothing was really available off the shelf. But today, you have vendors like Amberflow and the scenario that I described where we can get you there, right? So we can do the heavy lift. And so you can just focus on this experimentation cycle. What is that right combination for me? Which models, mix and match, all those things. So yes, definitely a heavier lift, like I said, relative to the old world of just pure play subscription. But like I said, don't be fazed by it. Don't be scared by it. Unfortunately, it is one of those moments where it is not a question of if you should do it. It's only a question of when. It's one of those things. So I would just say to your audience, I think just jump in, lean in with both feet, head first. You'll surface. It's not that daunting. It may seem complicated, but there's tools out there, there's methodologies out there. People now have done it ahead of you who have been successful. So talk to us. We can certainly share some of those case studies, get there. That's what I would say.
Well, thanks for talking me off the ledge and possibly a lot of people who are watching. Um, we talked about Gen AI changing the industry around us. What is the ultimate vision for Amberflow? What would you say?
Our vision has always been we were motivated to start the company. We just fundamentally believed in the usage-based model. Our vision is that we wish to see the world transform to a usage-based pricing and billing world. Uh, we almost think that subscription was somewhat of an aberration. I think the better model, the alignment, the win-win, the holy grail, however you want to classify it, is a usage-based pricing and billing model where it's better for the customer. And fortunately now vendors and ISVs also discovering it's also better for them because it drives organic growth and adoption, increases pace of innovation. So that's been our vision. We just will continue to do whatever it takes to assist companies to move the market, the industry, the economy in that direction. And by the way, just I should clarify, sometimes I get interpreted the wrong way. When I say usage-based pricing, it's not in the purest form of just pay as you go at the end of the month in arrears. A hybrid model is perfectly fine with the usage-based pricing, where you could say, here's a fixed component, but after that it falls into an overage plan. Bottom line is we're saying is, things need to be metered. Like when you and I go buy for groceries, you pay for what you buy, not a subscription price to Safeway. You pay for the travel for the miles you travel, right? You pay for the amount of food you eat at a restaurant. You're not buying subscriptions to any one of these places, right? So that's our view that, the world was always designed to be consumptive, to be usage-based. And it's the most fair, most mature, the right model. So we want to see the world shift in that direction. That's our mission. That's our vision. And then our mission is to basically build a set of technology and product sets that enable customers to do that successfully.
Well, great for appreciate that. Another great conversation and great information from you. Sharing your expertise with the VMblog viewers. So appreciate you joining the show again, and look forward to the next time we talk, and hopefully a few months from now, and see how much has changed and where things are and where they're heading.
Always a pleasure to speak with you, David. Yeah, looking forward to that too. Thank
All
you
right.
for having me again. You bet.
All right. Thanks.